Sunita Devi, Loka Devi, and Vrajatruna Devi. Sahadev Prabhu. I'm very glad to be here. Thank you all very much. My obeisances to all the devotees here. Thank you for this opportunity for me to come and just have a space to talk about Krishna. And so I feel that this is a selfish thing for me because I end up learning so much more. I have nothing to teach. I just can have ideas and of my understanding of what Prabhupada is saying. But it is no small thing when we can get together and speak even a little bit about Krishna. So, this verse talks about it. So thank you all again very much. My name is LILA Devi Dasi. So today we're continuing with our reading of the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, Canto 1, Chapter 18, Text 19. Hey. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Yasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashta Prayesa Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Okay, let's begin. So again, Canto 1, Chapter 18, Text 19. Kutaha punar granato namatasya mahat maikanta parayanasya yonanta shaktir bhagavan ananto mahat gunatwad yamananta mahu. And translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Key. Translation. And what to speak of those who are under the direction of the great devotees, chanting the holy name of the Unlimited, who has unlimited potency. The personality of Godhead, unlimited in potency and transcendental by attributes, is called Ananta, unlimited. Purport. The Dvija Bandhu, or the less intelligent, uncultured men born of higher caste, put forward many arguments against the lower caste men becoming brahmanas in this life. They argue that birth in a family of Shudras or less than Shudras is made possible by one's previous sinful acts, and that one therefore has to complete the terms of disadvantages due to lower birth. And to answer these false logicians, Srimad Bhagavatam asserts that one who chants the holy name of the Lord under the direction of a pure devotee can at once get free from the disadvantages due to a lower caste birth. A pure devotee of the Lord does not commit any offense while chanting the holy name of the Lord. There are 10 different offenses in the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. To chant the holy name under the direction of a pure devotee is offenseless chanting. Offenseless chanting of the holy name of the Lord is transcendental, and therefore such chanting can at once purify one from the effects of all kinds of previous sins. This offenseless chanting indicates that one has fully understood the transcendental nature of the holy name and has thus surrendered unto the Lord. Transcendentally, the holy name of the Lord and the Lord himself are identical, being absolute. The holy name of the Lord is as powerful as the Lord. The Lord is the all-powerful personality of Godhead, and he has innumerable names, which are all non-different from him and are equally powerful also. In the last word of the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord asserts that one who surrenders fully unto him is protected from all sins by the grace of the Lord. Since his name and he himself are identical, the holy name of the Lord can protect a devotee from all effects of sins. The chanting of the holy name of the Lord can undoubtedly deliver one from the disadvantages of a lower caste birth. The Lord's unlimited power is extended on and on by the unlimited expansion of the devotees and incarnations. And thus every devotee of the Lord and incarnations can also be equally surcharged with the potency of the Lord. Since the devotee is surcharged with the potency of the Lord, even fractionally, the disqualification due to lower birth cannot stand in the way. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshiro Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine. Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvya Evacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai, dear friends, I'm happy to be here again, approaching this with a very limited understanding, but with a deep respect and honor to all of you and to all of our teachers who have brought us this far, and to our entire lineage of teachers, our parampara, which Srila Prabhupada, out of his mercy and his love and compassion for us, gave his life to explain these verses to us. So I'll just go back to the translation. And what to speak of those who are under the direction of the great devotees, chanting the holy name of the unlimited, who has unlimited potency. The personality of Godhead, unlimited in potency and transcendental by attributes, is called Ananta. Prabhu, would you mind just going to the verse before it, because it's directly related. So this is a direct continuation of what was coming before. And so the verse before is 18. Sri Sutta Goswami said, "O God, although we are born in a mixed caste, we are still promoted in birthright simply by serving and following the great who are advanced in knowledge. Even by conversing with such great souls, one can without delay cleanse oneself from all disqualifications resulting from lower births. And what to speak of those who are under the direction of the great devotees, chanting the holy name of the unlimited, who has unlimited potency. The personality of Godhead, unlimited in potency and transcendental by attributes, is called Ananta, or unlimited." So those two verses directly follow one another and are talking, well, one follows the other. And it's talking about the process of Krishna consciousness and the qualifications for it. And we hear Srila Prabhupada speaking about this a lot. This is one of the main points that some of the people from when he tried to bring these teachings to the West were against this, of him making brahmanas of people who were not born in the brahmana caste. And the understanding of the Shastra is that is not what qualifies us, actually. It's our birthright to be devotees of the Lord. And it's our birthright to come to Krishna consciousness. And it has nothing to do with who we are in this material world, our temporary personalities, our temporary bodies, our temporary situations. And so let's try to see what Srila Prabhupada is actually saying to us here. So first, the verse is talking about the unlimited. And there's unlimited, infinite. There is a documentary on Netflix about eternity, and all these scientists are trying to understand what eternity is, and they get very excited about it. It's a concept that is beyond our understanding. It's a chintya. We can't understand, actually. We can only try to imagine what the unlimited is, and it's just something that keeps going and going and going with no end, no beginning and no end. And it's interesting, they get very, very excited about it, and they study it, and they try to come to an understanding of what it is. And yet nowhere in there is it talking about Krishna. So even when we're not talking about Krishna, this idea of something being unlimited and eternal and everlasting, it's very attractive to us as people. What to speak of the unlimited everything that is Krishna. And so there's unlimited pastimes, unlimited names, unlimited quality, unlimited Bhagavatams in unlimited universes that are being spoken about by unlimited jivas. And let's really take a moment to try to grasp the concept of what that actually means, because we can read these things and sure, okay, Krishna's unlimited, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is unlimited, but what does that actually mean? And when we talk about his pastimes and his names and qualities, they never end. Nothing about him ever stops. As a matter of fact, it increases. His good qualities, all of his qualities increase. His beauty increases. The pastimes that he's engaged in just keep happening over and over and over again, and there's no end. And so it's interesting that we live we're in the material world, and one of the main characteristics of this world is that it is limited. Everything is limited. We're limited. Our bodies are limited. Our mind and intelligence is limited. Our abilities are limited. The nature of this world itself is also limited. Things only happen within a very structured set of rules that we've come to understand as science. But they're limited. We can't, there are many things we can't do. But to think about the unlimited in the sense of Krishna and who we are in relationship to that unlimited is really gives us an understanding, or a little bit of moving closer to understanding Krishna. And why do we need to understand who Krishna is? And this will become apparent in this verse. So the qualifications of being a Brahmana are not based on birth. In Western philosophy, the philosopher Plato talked about this point when he said that for society to function properly, people should live according to their nature, and that society should be structured in a way that supported the different natures, the abilities and capabilities of people. And then once one found their nature, that they should stay there and not move around and try to figure out how to be something else. And that if this ultimately to be satisfied and to be happy, this was what he was proposing. And that sounds like the Varna system of people. He was speaking about this, maybe 1,500 years ago. I'm not exactly sure of the timeline of him, but these were ideas that were already part of the Vedic culture. And so it's interesting that some of these ideas transcend different cultures, and different philosophers in a different place could come to this understanding and see that, yeah, people have natures, and to live based out of that nature will bring us ultimate satisfaction. And so we add Krishna to that equation, and then everything sort of is in its place. So that way of structuring society, we don't see that so much in our political system, or I'm not sure whether Plato actually achieved the kind of society that he was proposing. A lot of the ideas that he had are very, very similar to Vedic culture. He talked a lot about these higher principles. So again, this is not he's not saying, and this is not what the Bhagavatam is saying, that it's not based on birth, it's based on your nature. And this is something that we're cultivating in every moment. And the nature that we have in this life, everything that I am, I have to take responsibility for, in that I cultivated that before I got here. And if I can come to that understanding, I can see that I am solely responsible for my position, and then that gives me the understanding of the responsibility of what I'm cultivating not just in this life, but in the next life. What is it that I'm building for myself, for my future? So we have a lot of that. We talk about it a lot in our society about what are we building for our retirement, for our family? What are we going to leave behind as a legacy? But how often do we go beyond the material and think about what we're building for ourselves in our Krishna consciousness and to offer? So we don't just create something for our own selves, for our own enjoyment. It's actually for our service, to offer back to Krishna. And so that can only come with the understanding of who we are and who Krishna is and what we're doing here and the process. So okay, so this is it's being said here clearly, and it's in the last verse alluded to it. This is our birthright. It's not based on where we are. So I feel a relief, because I wasn't born in a you know aristocratic family. Yeah, just very simple people, you know, with good values, but not extremely wealthy, not super wealthy, not even halfway wealthy. But somehow or other, I ended up taking to Krishna consciousness. And so there was something to the values that were instilled within me, based on family. But still, for whatever reason, I have the family that I have. I'm born in the time that I'm born, and okay, this is what I have to work with. And then Bhagavatam is telling me that no matter what my situation is, I can still take to Krishna consciousness. This is not a disqualification. So, okay, I already feel relieved from that, because there's so many things I'm not qualified to do in this world. So, so then Prabhupada says, Srimad Bhagavatam asserts that one who chants the holy name of the Lord under the direction of a pure devotee can at once get free from the disadvantages due to a lower caste birth. So it just means to step into the process, right? The Bhagavad Gita talks about learning the truth humbly and submissively, inquiring humbly and listening submissively from those who know. And so we step into the flow, into the chain of the parampara and of our lineage of teachers. And with that association, we're able to get free. Once we step into the process, we're able to get free of any of the things, whether no matter what our situation is, we don't have to be stuck there. We're not completely powerless and just floating around and dependent on this material world for where we're going to end up. We actually have some that this is our nature of Tatashta Shakti, right? Where we can have the choice of moving closer to Krishna or to actually ignore Krishna. And the reality of it is that we can't actually move closer or away. That's an illusion, because Krishna is everywhere. He's in our hearts. He's in everything that is around us. Even the material world, it's all Krishna's energy. He tells us this in the Bhagavad Gita. But I do have free will. And what does that free will actually mean? It means that I can choose whether I'm Krishna conscious or I want to pretend that Krishna isn't here and not be Krishna conscious. And so this is our free will. So I can't actually move away from him. I can just pretend that I don't see him. And he accepts that too. He's okay with that. If I want to be an atheist, he gives me the understanding and the intelligence to argue that Krishna doesn't exist. And can you imagine that kind of security in a person, that even if you deny them and you deride them and don't even acknowledge their existence, he's just perfectly happy, and he doesn't end up hating that person. He actually says, okay, how can I help you in your desire to pretend that I'm not here. And so if that's what he does for people who don't want to see Krishna, what about the people who actually are looking? What about those of us who are seeking and searching and saying, I know that there's a higher reality. Maybe I've had an experience of it. I've had a taste, or this person that I trust, they seem to know what it is. And I want to know what they're doing. So imagine what he's giving us then and how he's supporting us in that process. So the process, it is talked about here that there are 10 different offenses to chanting of the holy name. And then this is in other places in our Shastra. But I'll just go through those quickly. So the 10 offenses, to blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives to the holy name, to consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu, to disobey the orders of the spiritual master, to blaspheme the Vedic scriptures or scriptures in pursuance to the Vedic version, to consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be an imagination, to give some interpretations of the holy name of the Lord, to commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name, to consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in the Vedas as fruitive activities. So that's karma kanda. It means if I do this, then I get that. So that's considered an offense. To instruct a faithless person against the glories of the holy name. There's a colloquial phrase, right? Swine before pearls. Well, it's actually really old. It's in the Bible. So this is also considered an offense. So we're sharing something that is of the highest value. But it's, in a sense, it's almost wasted if we try to give it to someone who doesn't want it. And number 10, to not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy name and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. So I hear all these 10 offenses and I personally get overwhelmed. Oh, how am I going to remember these? How am I going to, even if I did remember them, how can I manage to not commit any of these at the same time? For me, it's a lot. But I am limited, right? So what does that leave us with? Well, there's one of these offenses that we can argue that if we take to this to not committing this offense, all the other offenses could fall under that. And then we can have still be able to attempt to chant offenselessly so that we can chant offenselessly. And that is to not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy name. If I have complete faith in the holy name, it means that I have some understanding of what the holy name is, what the results are. How is Krishna reciprocating when I call out his names? What the results are of chanting the holy name. So I have an understanding of the process and I understand why I'm doing this. And so the purpose of it, because I want to develop this relationship with Krishna. And ultimately develop it to such a way that I'm reciprocating the love that he's already giving me. So when we talk about developing our relationship with Krishna, it's really our own reciprocation with him. He's already giving, moment to moment to moment, he's giving. But do we actually see it? Do we recognize it? And so let's talk about this faith in the chanting of the holy name. What does this actually mean? So Prabhupada actually talks about this in this purport a little bit. Let's see. This offenseless chanting indicates that one has fully understood the transcendental nature of the holy name and has thus surrendered to the Lord. Jiva Goswami says, where is this? I think it's not Rasamrita Sindhu. is one of the Sundarbha books. He says, chanting the holy name is the chief means to attaining love of Godhead. This chanting or devotional service does not depend on any paraphernalia, nor on one's having taken birth in a good family. Oh, thank God. That's great. Great news. So again, this is being repeated. But what does it mean when I actually have faith? When we have faith, when we trust, we have an understanding. First, we need to have an understanding of what the thing is before we can put our faith in it or our trust in it. And then to behave in a way that reflects that faith, that understanding. When we're one example is that when we're children, and we come to the understanding that our parents are a source of support and comfort and nurturing. We may not have the language or even those concepts in our minds if we're very, very young. But we still understand them based on how we're treated and their actions, and how we feel based on how we're treated. And so we don't have to have the language or the understanding of the concepts to experience them and to know that we're experiencing them on some level of consciousness. But when I have faith and trust, I actually live with confidence. One time Prabhupada was asked what did it feel like to be a pure devotee? And I think it was in some interview, and they asked him, what is it like to be this pure devotee? And he thought about it for a while, and he said, fearlessness. So to know Krishna, to be Krishna conscious, means to be fearless. And so when we have an understanding of who Krishna is, then how could we be afraid? Because we understand everything. We understand the world. We understand what's happening in the world. We understand who we are, what can happen to me, what cannot happen to me. And then I can be rational about it and say, well, Krishna says that he's my friend and that he's here to protect me, and he's always here to protect me. And so what does that mean for the way that I live my life and approach it? How much fear do I live with? And sometimes we're not even aware of the fears that we have. And so it's important for us to self-evaluate our own psyches, our own psychology. And that this is one of the ironies, that even if we don't understand anything about psychology, we still have a psychology, and we're behaving from that psychology. Even if we don't study philosophy, we still have a life philosophy. We just may not be aware of what that life philosophy is. And so for us, we try to live the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. So we have one. However, we can still have other underlying philosophies, maybe from our conditioning, from our the samskaras in our psyche, in our subtle body, our mind, and our intelligence. And so it's important to self-evaluate. But what does it mean when to understand that Krishna is the holy name, and to have faith in that? What that actually means is that I live based on that philosophy and based on that understanding. And one of the symptoms of living based on that understanding is to be fearless. And so what are we afraid of? We're afraid of dying. We're afraid of all the things that happen in between birth and death. And everything becomes a source of fear, because this is actually a scary world. There's always something. There's war, there's strife, there's scary political systems, there's global warming, there's lack of food, there's shortage of oil, there's all of these things. It's unlimited, the problems that we can find if we just have to start looking. It's like pulling a thread. But that doesn't actually take us anywhere. And so we can start to see, rather than trying to fix all the things that make me fearful, I can come to the understanding of Krishna and then find fearlessness, because it's a losing battle to try to situate my life in this material world in a way that brings me no fear and brings me peace and brings me freedom from anxiety. It's not going to happen. It's like trying to stop the ocean from coming. We just can't do it. It's too big. It is its nature. And so the other way to approach it is to take shelter of Krishna. So we talk about it a lot. We say it, but what does it actually mean? So going back to the offenses, if I have faith, there was a Christian apologetic, I think he's considered an apologetic. He said, no, okay, that was a different thing. So St. Augustine said, I believe, or I have faith so I can understand. So he puts faith as the foundation for the understanding that will come. And he's speaking about God. I have faith so that I may understand. So first we have to agree, okay, I take this into consideration, that it's not a matter of whether God exists or not. That's a given, because he's actually not dependent on our belief to exist. That's not even, it's not even relevant. That's not what we're talking about. But to have faith in him so that we can understand. It's a circular thing, so that I understand him and I get to know him, and then I can put my faith in him. And if I have faith in him, and then I can really see with a clear vision who he is and understand it that way, and then it informs my faith. So my faith informs my understanding informs my faith. And so we're just come to this place of, if I understand who he is, then I understand who I am, because there's a connection there. And then vice versa. If I understand myself, I can understand him. And so this is where my faith is. So if I have complete faith in chanting the holy name, then of course I'm going to understand that everything else, all the other offenses that are listed before this one, they all will fall into place. Because if I have faith in chanting the holy name, then I understand how precious it is, and I won't instruct a faithless person in it. If I have faith in the chanting of the holy name, I will know that this isn't actually karma kanda, that it's not just me performing some ritual so that I can get some effect. If I have faith in Krishna and this process, and I have faith in the holy names, then I'm not going to abuse the holy name by committing sinful activities and thinking, okay, the holy name is going to save me, because I will already know, based on my faith and my understanding, that Krishna is the holy name. I'm just not going to do that. Or for some of us, like myself, I'm going to engage in the process of trying to not commit these offenses, with the understanding that where I am, right? Being honest about where I am in this process. So if I have faith, then immediately it means that I can't imagine that I don't consider the glories of the holy name to be my imagination, because I already have a faith that I know what it is. And if I have faith in the holy name, then I won't blaspheme any devotees or any scriptures. I won't disobey the spiritual master. And I won't consider any other names of the demigods to be anywhere equal to the names of the Lord. So it just makes it so much more simple to start from that place of developing our faith into coming to that understanding. Everything else will fall into place, and then we're only following one thing. It's like there's so many rituals and so many rules. Do this, don't do that. You have to do it this way, you have to do it that way. But if we keep the understanding that of what the purpose is for our rules and regulations, and that it's about bringing us closer to Krishna, or keeping us further away from Krishna, and we put all rules and regulations into those two categories. Is this bringing me further away, or is this taking me further away, or is this bringing me closer? Then I can correctly understand rules and regulations. So rather than learning every single rule that has ever been said to be learned, or avoiding every single thing that is to be avoided, I don't have to do that. I can just, whatever comes up, I can just see which category it fits in. Is this actually going to bring me closer to Krishna? And then I can engage in that. Or is this in the service of always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna? So let's see. Then Prabhupada continues saying, so coming in contact, the verse prior to this said that even by having a conversation with a pure devotee, we can become free, because that gives us the understanding, because we can see what a devotee of the Lord is, and they give us Krishna. So even coming in contact with them, it's not it is a transcendental process. It is something that is beyond what we can see materially. It's a metaphysical process. It's happening at a level that maybe we can't quantify the way we want to quantify scientific things, or the natural world with scientific rules and laws, and I want to see it, and I want to put it in a test tube, and please show me the proof and the evidence. It's not happening at that level, but it is happening that we come into contact and something happens to us. We just have to be sensitive enough to see these are the effects. And so Prabhupada is saying, since the devotee is surcharged with the potency of the Lord, even fractionally, the disqualification due to lower birth cannot stand in the way. So this, what Prabhupada's referring to here, that is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, it's a verse in the 18th chapter. Is it 65? 1865. Where Krishna says he will protect us from all sinful reactions. Sarva dharma paridyaja mamekam sharanam vraja. I will protect you. Let's see if we can pull up that verse. Krishna's he's explaining this throughout the Bhagavad Gita, but and he says it in a few different places. It's 1866. Mistake. Sarva dharman paridyaja mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papevyo mokshe shami masuchaha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. This is very important. Those sinful reactions, and this is Krishna's mercy. This is where we can feel this unconditional love, unconditional mercy, because these fearful reactions, the only thing that's fearful is the thing that I've created myself by this level of consciousness that I have, right? We've been going from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime to lifetime, cultivating an egocentric perspective where it's all about me, where we're trying to lord it over over the world. We're trying to lord it over other people. We're trying to be the cause, the center of the universe. Everything is about me, me, me. And so naturally, the cause and effect of the effect of that cause is that I end up in the material world, where if I want to play this little mini God, now I'm here, and Krishna says, okay, if that's the kind of playground that you desire, then I'll put you here and you can sort that out, figure it out, and then when you're ready to come back, you just let me know, and we can be together again. So those fearful reactions are of my own doing. I can really take a look in my life and see that a lot of the difficulties, most of the difficulties are caused by my own mind, by my own body. Sure, there are things that are outside of my control, but still, to some degree, we wouldn't be in those situations if there wasn't something that it was meant to teach us. There was an opportunity and a gift presented in everything that happens to me. And so it's this idea of this is happening for me, not happening to me. So I can't blame Krishna for my situation because it's not Krishna's doing. And so to take this position of Krishna's punishing me, that's not what Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is saying, I'm going to protect you from all the sinful reactions, not I'm going to punish you for all your sins. This is not the language that he uses. And so what does that mean? That implies that this is of my own doing. He's willing to pick up the pieces only if I ask for help, right? Because he's respects our free will so much that he's willing to just wait until I ask for help. And so I have to take, and what does that asking for help actually mean? It means taking to the process of Krishna consciousness and developing this faith in the Lord so that I can feel secure to do what? To take shelter. And once I take shelter, I can see, oh, I'm actually safe here. What can I do now? Everything is okay. Krishna's got me. But we don't always live from that place. We live in a very fearful place. And even if we're not, even if we've come to the platform where we understand, okay, Krishna's always protecting me. I had this realization the other day. I was thinking about, say you have two people who are at odds. Maybe they're having some conflict. And let's just say they're devotees, and I was thinking, what happens if both people are praying to Krishna for protection? So I'm praying for protection from you, and you're praying for protection from me. So what is he going to do? I was just curious about this because he's reciprocating with everyone. And this idea that he's actually going to protect us from each other, right? He's not going to pick one and say, well, okay, for whatever reason, your prayer, I'll fulfill your prayer and protect you. But what about the other devotees who are praying for protection? And so this is his mercy that he can do all of it all at once. So this is just, I forgot the point I was making with that when I mentioned it. But delivering me from these sinful reactions, they're just of my doing. And I can't take this position that, well, it's what Krishna's doing to me. He's not actually doing anything to me. I'm actually just experiencing the effects of my own consciousness. And he's going to protect me from those effects of the consciousness by bringing me in contact with the holy name, by bringing me in contact with the devotees who are surcharged with his potency. And there's the verse that's chanted during yagyas, Om Pavitra Pavitrova Sarvavashtam Gato Piva Yasmaret Pundarikaksham Sabhaya Abhayantara Suchi. Whether pure or impure, whatever our conditions of life is, if you just remember the lotus-eyed Lord, then you become pure externally and internally. And what does that mean? So the material world contaminates our consciousness. And then we start to live from this material conception of life because we're just being contaminated. It's like dust. It just comes all over and it contaminates everything. And then you're just living in a dusty place. And this is what happens to our consciousness. It just becomes contaminated by it. And so to come into contact with Krishna, to come into contact with the holy name, to come into contact with the devotee, immediately purifies me. It purifies me from this material conception, from this material dust. And it protects me from what? From myself, from all the effects of any sinful reactions, right? From those sinful reactions, the effects, any reactions of any mistakes that I've made in the past. So what is a sin? A sin is not, it's not so much that we're just bad jivas that are, misbehaving. It's just a misunderstanding. I misunderstood. I somehow, this dust has clouded my vision so much that I don't understand. And so if I make mistakes, or I'm sorry, not mistakes, if I take actions and I speak words based on a specific understanding that's incomplete, everything that comes onto that is going to be somehow faulty because my understanding is incorrect. And so then I get the understanding. And Krishna says this, I give them the understanding by which to come to me. And so we have devotion, we develop this faith. How, if I know Krishna, if I really try to use my intelligence and be rational and try to understand Krishna and hearing from sadhus, hearing from Shastra, hearing from Guru, and I make a real effort to try to understand, and I come to this understanding that Krishna is my friend, Krishna's protecting me. He says this in verse 64. First he says, I'm sharing this with you because you're my very dear friend. And then he says, if you just devote yourself to me, I'm going to reciprocate with you. And then verse 66, that reciprocity, what that reciprocation means is that I'm going to protect you from all the sinful reactions that may come your way. And so if I have that understanding, I forgot the point that I was making about that. Yeah, just this understanding that Krishna is my friend. This is what I have faith in. And this is how I'm going to live my life. From this place, I'm going to engage. And so this was the point. If I come to the understanding of those things and I open my mind and I open my heart and I put my disbelief aside, I put my conditioning aside, I put my own ego, my ego nature aside, then how could I not love Krishna? How could I not trust Krishna? How could I not take shelter? So with that understanding comes the faith, and with the faith comes the understanding. And then we're operating from a different platform. We're operating on the platform that I'm always protected. Krishna's always here. Even if I try to imagine that he's not, and I try to pretend that he's not, in all the moments and the days that I forget that Krishna's there, it doesn't actually mean he's any further away. He's only further away in my own consciousness, in my own vision, but he doesn't actually go anywhere. Right? When you go inside on a sunny day, you go inside and all the windows are closed and all the shades are down, doesn't mean that the sun isn't actually there. It just means you went inside and created a condition that was dark. That's all. The sun doesn't actually go away. And so it's similar with Krishna. He doesn't actually go further away from us. We create conditions in which we're in darkness. And he allows that. He says, okay, you can do that. And then when you're ready to come out and you're ready to be warmed by the sun again, the sun is there. So this is our understanding of this verse. The connection with, this was one last point about this. The devotee is surcharged with the potency of the Lord. What does that mean? Which devotee? So based on this verse, our birthright is that we're all devotees. We just have a different level of remembrance of that. But there's no one who isn't a devotee. There is no jiva in all of creation that is not a devotee. We just forget, or we choose to forget, whichever it is, it doesn't matter. We forget. But everyone, so what this implies is that every single one of us has the birthright and the ability to be surcharged, the capability to be surcharged with the potency of the Lord. So we are the instruments that can vibrate the holy name. And then we, like Bhagavad Gita says, we enlighten each other by speaking about Krishna Katha, by speaking about his pastimes, by reminding each other, don't be afraid, Krishna's your friend. I certainly need that reminder all day, every day. And so this is why coming together to talk about Krishna is the most valuable thing. But this takes it, we can take this a step further, because we have this ability that we can tap into the source, tap into Krishna, and be surcharged by his potency. To me, and we'll discuss this in a moment, but to me that implies great responsibility. There's a quote that says, to he who much is given, much is expected. And we don't have to, we have free will, but if we have an understanding of cause and effect, and just even a rational understanding of what reciprocity means, then naturally I'm going to want to do something. I'm going to take that as a responsibility. If I have a rational understanding of everything that my parents gave to me, even though they like all of us, we make mistakes, we do our best, we have different conditioning, we come with different ideas, but they did their best and they gave me so much. It's only natural that when I come to realize that, I want to reciprocate, and I take that reciprocity as my responsibility because it's the right thing to do. And so this is the same. When we realize that Krishna has given us everything, all facility, and especially the ability to be able to remember and to be in the association of people who are trying also to remember, who are reminding us, then naturally I want to reciprocate with Krishna. And I take that as a very, very serious responsibility. How can I do this? What can I give back to you? He doesn't actually need anything, but what will actually please you, so that I can show you how grateful I am. And then it just goes back to, again, reminding each other of who we are. Oh, we're servants of Krishna. Oh, our true nature is to be servants and to love Krishna and to be in a loving relationship with him. And so it just becomes very natural, and it doesn't feel forced, and it doesn't become some, it goes beyond a religion. It goes beyond preaching. It just becomes about sharing and giving what we have, that if we come to understand how valuable it is, then we can share it. And love is that one thing that the more you give, it never depletes. Actually, the more you give, the more you get, and the more you end up having available to give. It's contrary to the way we do things in the world. We usually, the more we give of something, the less we have, and it starts to deplete. But that's not so with Krishna Prema. It just keeps increasing. It's unlimited, like he's unlimited. And so yeah, what is our relationship to this? What is our relationship to taking shelter of the holy name? How to avoid offenses to the holy name? And that's just by strengthening our faith in the holy name, and then everything else will just follow. It's like Prabhupada said, it's simple for the simple, complicated for the complicated. Just have faith in Krishna, and all the offenses, and even if we commit offenses, Krishna is saying, I will protect you from that. Because, you know, it's natural that in this world I'm going to make mistakes, and that my understanding sometimes it's not gonna be up to par. But this is why we have each other, to hold ourselves up to these standards, to hold each other up to these standards in a loving way. So, dear friends, do we have any ideas about this? Any comments? What has come up for you about this, about faith, about being protected from sinful reactions, about fear? Fear is a big one. Fear is a prominent, it's one of the main attributes of Kali Yuga, is that we're all living in fear. But the material world in general, it's just fear-based.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Lila Devi, for the wonderful class. We miss you. Okay, Krishna Prabhu, if you have a question, you may ask.
Yeah, my question is very simple.
Let me do this.
My question is on faith. You mentioned that if you have a question on faith, my faith is that if I'm scared about not having prasadam in Krishna consciousness, am I being Krishna conscious? That is my fear. Because Prabhupada mentioned time will come when there will be no food and people will eat human beings. If that is my fear, am I Krishna conscious?
If we have fear of not having what we need, does that mean that we're not Krishna conscious? No, I don't think that means we're not Krishna conscious, because this is the nature of how we are made in this world. We have bodies that are biologically made in a way that it does create fear, because it's a matter of survival. So I don't think we can equate a biological response with not being Krishna conscious. It's a legitimate fear to be afraid of not having the things that we need to subsist, which is food and shelter. And the extension of that in the world is money. We get afraid to not have money, because if I don't have money, then I don't have food and I don't have shelter. And if I don't have food and I don't have shelter, then how am I going to survive? I'm afraid of dying. So no, any animal, even those that have lower consciousness than us, this is what's natural for us, to seek the things that are going to ensure our survival. So we can't judge it in the sense that, oh, if I'm afraid, I'm not Krishna conscious. It's what we do with that fear. Once we have an understanding, but to have an understanding that Krishna provides, and I'm not going to be afraid. It's really important to see that it doesn't make those needs any less necessary. So just to find fearlessness doesn't mean that I'm going to need to eat less. I still need some basic survival things. And to be healthy, there are different things that I actually do need. I need shelter, I need food, I need different kinds of protection, I need different kinds of support. Emotionally, I should have a healthy emotional life. just to be able to practice Krishna consciousness, we need to work on these things. So I don't think it means that we're not Krishna conscious if we're afraid. It's natural to be afraid. This is the nature of our bodies in a world that is created that way. But we can, then the idea is, what do we take shelter on and what do we do? How do we approach this fear? Because Prabhupada did speak about this, right? He said, and so did Jesus. Prabhupada would say, you know, don't worry about where you're going to get your sustenance from. I'm not exactly sure exactly how that plays out if we're in a situation where we actually don't have those basic necessities and we don't have our basic needs met. But I don't think it's a matter of morality if we're afraid. It's just what happens. I mean, why would we need to take shelter of Krishna if we weren't afraid, if being fearful meant that we weren't Krishna conscious? He's saying, I'm going to protect you from all these fearful things. And so he's acknowledging that it's natural to be fearful. And so is Prabhupada. This is a very scary world. So I'm not sure that answers the question as to what to do in that situation. There's a lot of stories in our Shastra of how great personalities have dealt with being in those situations, and perhaps we can take shelter of that. And the idea is that we're here to help each other, right? This was Prabhupada's desire, that no one should go hungry. And the world does have enough. It's just that we distribute it in a way that's not helpful to everyone. Perhaps if we can increase the understanding of what compassion means and what wealth means and what Krishna conscious living means, then we can start to create a world where those things aren't happening, where people aren't worried about where they're going to get their next meal from. Yeah, Prabhu, I don't, let's see, I don't see you anymore. Where did you go?
I'm here. Thank you. Thanks for the answer.
What do you think? Tell me what you think. I'm curious of your experience of that, because we experienced that. It's a very common thing. You know, how am I going to pay my rent? And, you know, what is this job going to bring me? Will I be stable? How am I going to retire? Oh my goodness, this, that, the future. It's very scary.
Want me to disturb you? You want to ask my take on this? When we worry about material things, I think we are not Krishna conscious, because pure bhakti means Krishna, do me as you wish in your hand. So if you are already surrendered and detached and dependent on Krishna, fear means nothing. Whatever comes, comes. That's pure Krishna consciousness. That's my take on that. But the majority of us are always worried about all these material needs in life. So when we talk about fear, there must be transcendental fears. Losing Krishna, losing sight of pure bhakti. That should be fear. When Prabhupada, they ask him, why are you praying to the deities? He said, I'm afraid to fall down. I'm afraid of Maya. But you guys are not afraid of Maya. That is transcendental fear. But material things is not Krishna conscious. That's my take on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, I appreciate that perspective, because that is actually what Prabhupada is saying. That's how we started off. One of the things we started off by saying, it's actually in the verse itself, parayanasya, one who takes shelter of. And if we take shelter of, then we're fearless, right? This is, I mentioned that answer that Prabhupada gave about being a pure devotee means being fearless. So yes, that is true. And he says that you shouldn't worry about your sustenance, where you're going to get your next meal from. But we can't deny that we do get afraid. It's what we do with that fear that makes the difference. And it's what expresses our Krishna consciousness and the level of it. So sure, I'm sure there is a level where people don't become afraid at all. They don't even experience the fear. I think I'll just speak from my experience. Where I am now, I experience lots of fears over different things. And then I'm grateful to be fortunate enough that I can remember, oh, okay, I'm experiencing this fear. This is what I do. And if I forget, someone will remind me. I will tell someone and say, hey, I'm experiencing this fear. And then they'll say, okay, don't forget. But it's important, I think, also to acknowledge, for me, to acknowledge that that's where I am. And sometimes, going back to psychology, it's important to understand, to acknowledge what's happening internally for us. Sometimes just pretending that we're not afraid doesn't actually mean we're not afraid. And then that causes other, and like with any other emotions or things that go on in our psyche, sure, there is a fake it till you make it type of thing, but we can see very clearly that a lot of the issues that are going on with us as people in our societies are because we haven't come into an awareness of what is happening in our own psyches, in our own emotions, in our own belief systems. We're unaware of how we're operating. And a lot of it causes problems. This is why so many people, we need therapy, and we need therapists and counselors and help here and help there, because we've ignored a lot of those things. So a balance, I'm suggesting a balance between understanding that, yes, we will be fearful, and then knowing what to do with that. Okay, I see you back, Prabhu.
Yes, thank you so much for the answer. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's important what you said about being fearless, reflecting our like true Krishna consciousness. That's where we want to get, to, where we don't even experience it. We already know the only thing that happens. So there's a process of like, I become fearful, I remember Krishna. I become fearful, I remember Krishna. But what you're speaking about is that higher platform of, I remember Krishna, I remember Krishna, I remember Krishna, and there's nothing in between. I wish to get to that place where I don't have to be fearful about anything. This is really what I deeply desire. So I appreciated that comment. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, today's verse is 1:18 and 19. 1:18 and 19. So again, thank you so much, Mother Lila. Anyone with any question, please kindly indicate by using the hand emoji, and you'll be asked to unmute. Mother, I have a question. I think I have asked this question before, and because it appeared here in the pulpit, I still would want to ask. We know Lord Chaitanya did not write any book. The only thing he wrote was the Sikshastakam, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it is said that those 8 verses can fill the entire world with lots of scriptures. Now, in one of such stanzas, Lord Chaitanya was saying that Lord Shri Krishna's holy names are none different from himself, and that there are no hard and fast rules in chanting those names. But now we're seeing in this purport that there are rules, 10 offenses that are to be avoided when one wants to chant the holy names. So it seems like contradictory because one part says there are no hard and fast rules. It doesn't matter how you chant it. Once you chant the holy name, there is going to be effect. And here we are learning that if one does not follow certain rules, then the desired result may not be there. So I would like you to help address these seemingly contradictory approaches. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I like that. Thank you very much, Sahadev Prabhu. I don't, this is just my understanding. I don't see the 10 offenses as rules. I personally don't see it as contradictory, because if Lord Chaitanya is saying there are no hard and fast rules, when I read the 10 offenses, it's more about the essence and how I'm chanting, the mood that I'm chanting in. It's not so much about the rules. I will avoid doing those things if I have the right mood. And then I can still chant basically without any hard or fast rules if I maintain this mood. It's a mood. If you look at all the 10 offenses, it's really a mood of having faith and it's a mood of understanding the importance, the sanctity of the holy name. It's a matter of honoring and respecting all of these, where to not criticize or blaspheme the devotees. That's just the mood of, it's a mood of humility. It's a mood of understanding. It's a mood of honor and respect, and to not disobey the spiritual master, to not blaspheme the scriptures. That's all a mood. It has to do with my internal mood. This is the effect of it. So if we see it as if we take these things and see them as like hard and hard rules, then it goes back to what I was saying. It can be my experience, is that it becomes very overwhelming. Oh no, there's 10 of them. I don't stand a chance, because I'm a rascal, and I'm a rotten rascal sometimes. And some days I'm extra rotten, but it's all a mood. If I develop this mood, then it's just natural. I come with respect. So I don't see it so much as rules. It just becomes an essence. The rules and regulations are not regulations. The hard and fast rules that you're mentioning, he's basically saying, don't worry about the details, but we still have to maintain this mood or develop it to some degree. What do you think?
Well, I never actually tried to think about it or see it the way you described it, but the way you described it also makes sense. That it's more of a mood than rules. But Srimad Prabhu, if you have a question, please unmute. Please.
Hare Krishna, it's not a question, like it is a comment on that question you just asked.
Okay.
So first of all, my obeisances to everybody and to Mother Lila.
Hare Krishna.
Talking about rules about chanting, the 10 offenses are not considered rules, but chanting Vedic mantras, there are rules. There are rules for chanting Vedic mantras. But even the Mahamantra, when it was before Lord Chaitanya gave it to everybody as a means of deliverance for Kali Yuga, at the time of Lord Ram, people also chanted the Mahamantra, but in different ways. They used to chant Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, before Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And in that level is considered Vedic mantra. And there are many rules, and that's what we've heard in the stories, that when the gurus gave this mantra, they forbade the disciples not to share it. It's sacred and secret. So that was on the level of Vedic mantra. But when Lord Chaitanya gave it to everybody, he changed it to Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So in that way, it became liberated. The Mahamantra no longer remains part of the Vedic mantra. It becomes mantra for deliverance, which everybody has access and can chant without any rules. But to chant any Vedic mantra, there are many, many rules to observe. I think last time when you posted something on Gayatri, and you had Srivas Prabhu explaining some of the rules, entails to chant the Gayatri. Of course, besides Gayatri, every other Vedic mantra, there are many rules for chanting them. It is not like the offenses, which can make the Mahamantra become less effective. The offenses kind of reduce the potency of the chanting. But it is not how to chant. It is not about how to chant. So every other Vedic mantra, there are rules about how to chant them. You understand? So you cannot just pronounce the words. There are so many rules about when, where, and many other things to do before you pronounce these things and how to pronounce. But the Mahamantra, according to the, what is it called? The Namamrita, even if you pronounce it wrongly, it still hurts. It still has effect. But in Vedic mantra, you cannot pronounce wrongly and have effect. In fact, you're going to have opposite effect. So I think that is what is meant about rules, not like the offenses. Because talking about the offenses, so many saintly persons and Goswamis, they emphasize this point about not committing offenses by chanting the holy name. I think one Narottam Das said that you can go to the Ganges and get purified. But if you chant the holy name of the Lord and you commit offense, then you will never be purified, because it's like you are polluting, or you are offending what's supposed to save you. You are committing offense against that. In one of his songs, he said something like that. So anyway, just my contribution that offenses is not to be considered like rules for chanting. No, even many times we give the chanting to many people without telling them the offenses. Yeah. In the beginning, when Srila Prabhupada introduced the chanting of the Mahamantra, he did not say anything about the offenses. Yeah. So these offenses are simply to help us to get more advantage of the chanting, but they are not the rules. Rules mean how to chant and under what condition you can chant. But for the Mahamantra, there's no other condition, any condition you cannot chant. You can chant on any condition. You understand? So that is the point I want to make. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shimavara Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, thank you for that wonderful contribution. I really appreciated that, hearing about Lord Chaitanya making it a mantra of liberation, by not making it it's no longer a Vedic mantra. It actually transcends all of that. Yeah, I like that. Thank you.
There is a nice message in the chat room from LILA Kishori Devi.
Oh,
Honorable Lila Devi, I was watching the live stream on YouTube, but I wanted to offer obeisances and thank you for your clarity and sincerity in offering this wonderful class. So this is from Lila Devi. I especially appreciated the analogies of choosing to be in a dark place and Krishna's mercy waiting for us to come back into his light. Also, that starting on a faulty foundation will cause anything that we build to be faulty. It's true. It's so sweet having the association this morning, Hare Krishna. So that is from Lila. I believe she is your very sweet friend. And it must be very beautiful because you are both Lilas.
The Lila Club.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Lila Kishore. I much appreciate that. I'm so
Hare
happy.
Krishna.
Yeah, this is great. I think anyway, I find it a great mercy to be in all of your associations, because this is a scary world, and to be able to see that the answer is Krishna, everything is okay. Yeah, it's
But Lila, I have a question.
sure.
If we have Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, and Sasha Obama, right? We have these three people. Barack, Michelle, and Sasha Obamas. I believe that since Barack and Michelle gave birth to Sasha, cause and effect. Cause is Barack, effect is Michelle, and then Sasha will be the faith. In other words, we talk about faith, but it's not so simple as we always address it to be like. In order for someone to have faith in somebody means that you've been through situations and you've been proven beyond all doubts that this situation, you're going to come out of it. Like Mother Kunti, she had so much faith in Krishna. And why? Because she went through so many situations that she should have been dead, but somehow Krishna intervened. Unlike Mother Kunti and other great souls of the Lord, in my situation, I do something prescribed by the scriptures. And there should be a result from what I did based on the scriptural instructions, but the result is not there. So how do I continue to have this faith in Krishna when he is telling us that we should not fear? We have this fear because many things happen many times. We call on him and he doesn't seem to respond. And I believe he does not respond because one of his opulences is that of renunciation. Sometimes he doesn't really care much about what we're saying because he has his own things he wants to do. He does things when he wants to do. So I would like you to help me as to how one can develop faith in Krishna, regardless of Krishna intervening in one's life or not. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Brilliant, Sahadev Prabhu. I love that. Ah, such a good point. Okay. I would question when we think I would question this idea that Krishna isn't responding. Oftentimes, we don't have the sight to see the bigger picture the way he sees it. And so it could seem like he's detached and ignoring us. I would question that. I do question that, and I question it in the sense that I've tried to explore that in my own life, because the things that I think are him not answering my prayers or fulfilling my desires or protecting me in the way that I think he should protect me. The only thing that needs to happen is enough time needs to go by and I can realize this was really the best thing for me. I think what we confuse is if something doesn't feel good, then Krishna must not be present. Oh, he's ignoring me. I don't think that's accurate. We're so hardwired to avoid suffering, and we equate suffering with losing Krishna's mercy, or even, oh, I must have been so sinful, I deserve this bad thing to happen to me. Even that is a judgment, because if anyone here said, oh, look, I've had this horrible situation, we would never say that. It wouldn't be appropriate to say, wow, you must have been really sinful in another life, or sinful. It's just not appropriate to blame someone like that. So we don't know actually what is happening, what is being shown to us, and we have limited vision. And so I think if we expand the vision a little bit and see that maybe I don't know what this means, but to not consider that it means Krishna has left me, then that may change it. Just because something is uncomfortable doesn't mean that it's bad. I mean, you can go to the dentist and it's not a comfortable thing. You're in this chair, they're doing things to you, they're poking and have things in your mouth. It's an unpleasant situation. And yet, if we just expand the vision about it, put aside the feelings of it doesn't feel good and just be rational about it, it's a huge blessing to be able to go to the dentist, because this is a high level of healthcare that, at least in this country 200 years ago wasn't there. I mean, it used to be like the barber would give you a bottle of alcohol and then like pull things out or do whatever they were doing. It was a very crude environment. And so because something is uncomfortable doesn't mean that it's not the best thing for us. And so I'm not sure that Krishna ever does turn away, or forgets us, or I think you said because he's so renounced, like he's able to ignore us. I'm not sure that that's where he uses his renunciation. And so I'm just trying to think back to your question. So things don't always mean what they think we do, what we think they mean. And it's really important to change our relationship to discomfort. Sure, it's natural that we want things to be comfortable and to feel good and to always be happy, but that's not the nature of this world. And so we may suffer less. Tell me what you think about this idea. We may suffer less if we, and it's in the Bhagavad Gita, the pain and suffering, and happiness and distress being seen equally. It doesn't mean, the Bhagavad Gita is not saying you will never experience pain or distress or suffering. It just means you just know what to do with it. You put it in its appropriate place. So yeah, there's some thoughts on that. There was something else you said, but I'm struggling to remember it.
Well, thank you, Mother Lila. I really appreciate how you take questions and answer them. I guess it is It is no wonder who your guru is, because I'm still waiting for the Mahabharata though.
Yeah, it's in the works. I promise it's in the works.
Yeah, don't forget about me when it does come out.
Just now coming.
Okay, Hare Krishna. So Govinda Prabhu, please unmute and ask your question.
Hare Krishna, devotees, my respectful obeisances to you all, especially Mother Lila. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Mother Lila, in continuation to Sadhu Prabhu's question, I think this is very important question, and your answer is very brilliant. But I would like you to explain it further in conjunction with the scriptures as the evidence of maybe any devotee happen to be in a difficult predicament, so to speak, and at the end of it all, it tends to be something very wonderful, because the living entities naturally we are fearless, be part and parcel of Krishna. We only develop this quality of fear when we came in contact with the physical realms. Naturally, we don't die. Naturally, we don't fall sick. We don't grow old. We experience all these things after we came in contact with the material energy. And so this fear started from that point. And so we are always afraid. And also we're being put under illusion. We are forgetful of Krishna's protection and all that. And so we are always afraid, and everybody is afraid. Everybody is fearful. Everyone is afraid because we are in our, very, very unnatural situation here in the material atmosphere. So is there like some evidence or certain situations in the scriptures that someone was in that kind of fearful condition, and at the end of it all, he became very glorious? For us to understand practically how, because Krishna see very far, like you really explained. I think that we think seems to be very inauspicious, is very auspicious in the eye of Krishna, just because we don't see that far. We think it's very inauspicious, and so we cry, and then we lost faith, and we think Krishna is not with us. So is there like any evidence from the scriptures you can help us?
Thank you, Prabhu. Evidence in the scriptures from when someone was afraid, and then, all I'm thinking about is evidence of pure devotees who are not afraid. Even the beginning of this particular chapter talks about how Maharaj Parikshit, as a pure devotee, because of his Krishna consciousness, when he was bitten by the snake, was unafraid. He was fearless about it. And I'm thinking of Prahlad Maharaj being unafraid no matter what was happening to him. And so if anyone can think of someone displaying fear, but one of the things that I did want to explain further about this protection is I can see and understand how we can come to the idea that protection means our physical bodies. And this goes back to the first question that was asked about being Krishna conscious. Does that mean that we're not afraid? Because there's two levels. We have the physical material level, where we are embodied jivas, and our bodies do have fear based on whatever's happening in the environment around us. But then the higher consciousness level of, if we are truly Krishna conscious, like we just said with Maharaj Parikshit, Queen Kunti, Prahlad Maharaj, all these different personalities that didn't have fear. it's good to understand what Krishna's protection really means. And it was alluded to, someone said the greatest fear is of losing sight of Krishna. Because Prabhupada says that our greatest gift is Krishna consciousness. And so to not have that is our greatest fear. He also talks about it in the sense of our material bodies. He says that our greatest fear or our greatest misfortune can be to lose even our material body, which means that, to me, it implies that it's highly valuable, because it's through this human body that we can become Krishna conscious and continue the process until we no longer need a material body, and now we're in a spiritual body. Interestingly enough, there's a verse mentioned in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita that mentions that this Krishna consciousness process even takes away the fearfulness that we have of our spiritual identity. So we're even afraid of our spiritual identity, what to speak of the material world. But what I was getting at is that what protection really means doesn't mean that we are going to be protected we're not always going to be protected at the material physical level, because we are in a world that by nature we're going to have disease. So sure, the soul doesn't experience that, but the body does. We're going to age, there's going to be disease, we're going to die, we have some discomfort, there's some hurricane, some tornado, there's hunger, there's all of these things, there's pandemics. So logically, it means that protection, and we see it even to great devotees, bad things happen to them. And so what is it? Is it that Krishna is not protecting them, or that they're suffering some kind of result from some karma? But we understand that Shastra says that once we take shelter of Krishna, we're no longer under the law of karma. Now we're under Krishna's protection, but bad things still happen to us. So what does that mean? A true protection is a protection of our consciousness, so that we know to take shelter of Krishna, even when these things inevitably will happen. And so we're looking for protection to mean nothing bad will ever happen to me. I won't have bad situations. I won't lose something. I won't lose someone. Even losing this body, that's not what protection means. When we pray to Krishna for protection, it means protect my consciousness from getting lost in the suffering. Because when I have great suffering, I can lose my consciousness and just forget about Krishna and just go into panic mode. But it also happens if I have great material joy, then there's also, I need protection from that, because I can very much get lost in Maya and think that, oh, everything is great, everything is wonderful. That's also a very scary situation. So similar to how we talked about having not enough to eat, having too much to eat is also a scary position to be in, because we can get lost in that. And so the idea is to understand what is true protection when I ask for it, and what does it look like to be logical and rational. And again, you Sahadev Prabhu, you brought up Queen Kunti. She didn't have faith because bad things stopped happening to her. She had faith even though they kept happening. And so she had an understanding that she must have had an understanding that that protection was still happening. It just looked different. It looked maybe not the way we would expect it. We would expect, I ask for protection and it means all these bad things go away. But perhaps it's, I ask for protection and I continue to see Krishna's hand in everything that's happening, even though it's happening. And maybe that's real protection. So that was what I wanted to add, but I can't think of anything. You put me on a spot. I can't think of anything of anyone who did have faith, who did have fear, and then ended up seeing that their fear was unfounded. I'm just thinking of examples of people who just don't have it because they're already at that level.
Well, if I can contribute to that.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, so Arjun was fearful.
Oh yeah, classic.
Arjun had doubt and he was fearful.
Obvious answer.
Yeah, and Gajendra was fearful. He was afraid he was going to die after being in battle for years with the crocodile. So, and he prayed to Krishna, and then Krishna saved him. And Arjun also, when Krishna removed all his doubts, his fear also was allayed. So these are at least good example of devotees who are in fearful condition, out of really, really serious condition of fear of losing their body or losing everything they had. And Krishna came in. And then at the end of it, they became happy and satisfied. Okay? I think that answers.
Yes,
Those are
perfect.
scriptural
Thank you.
conditions. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great. Thank you for adding that, because, and even in the case of Arjuna, he was a great devotee, and that doesn't mean that he wasn't afraid and he wasn't despondent. So that goes back to that original point that even a great devotee can be afraid. I mean, I know it's part of the LILA, and Arjuna's exhibiting something, but he was still a person, and he did have the fear. Whether everything is under Krishna's LILA when he's involved, but Arjuna still, he felt it. It was just a misunderstanding, that's all. He just got a little confused for a moment, which we all do.
I have something to add to that. If we see the story of Duryodhana and the mother Gandhari. She gave him instruction, come to me naked. He was faithful, no fear, he believed the mother. But Krishna put doubt in him to deceive him. So in Krishna consciousness, how do we transcend or to know when to have total faith and be fearless, and when to be fearful or doubtful? But Duryodhana believed the mother, because the mother is the guru was, but God himself put doubts in him. The mother is lying, just for the favor of the Pandavas. So a devotee, how do you know when the devotee gives you instruction or ideas for your favor and when to have doubts? In that case, you see that fearfulness is really important. Doubt is also very important. How do we discuss this?
Yes, this doubt is, it's described that doubt is a function of our intelligence, and it can bring us to discernment. So this is important. There are many things that I think are important when we come up to these crossroads, because we can't just take one. Sometimes it doesn't work to just take one thing and make a decision based on that. There are many factors in making a decision, and we have to use our discernment. Who we ask, who we're taking shelter of, who we're taking instruction from. And also this is one of the reasons why we engage in this process of purifying our emotions, our bodies, our subtle bodies, right? That includes our emotions, our minds, and our intelligence, so that when we make decisions, we actually have a clearer perspective. And we check with Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. And then all the things should line up, but we can't deny our own intelligence and our own wisdom. And so all of those things can be there, because we've seen how maybe it's happened to us. We have or we know someone, there's some misunderstanding or some misappropriation of Shastra, and it leads people to have difficulty. And so it's not that there's some fault in Shastra, it's in how we understood and how we applied. And so I think we have to be very, very careful to discern appropriately and really work at having clear understanding. and this is why I think that part of our Krishna consciousness includes understanding our own psychology and our self-realization to also be a very real and pragmatic thing in the material world, because we want to avoid things like blind spots, you know, in psychology, these blind spots, the things that you don't know you're behaving from this conditioning or from this trauma response or from this thing or that thing. And so we have to really, really get to know ourselves, not just self-realization as I'm the servant of the servant of the servant. I'm a spark of Krishna, of his splendor. That is true. And if we come to that understanding, everything else does fall into place. But there's also a very real pragmatic aspect to our self-realization that actually informs and can help us advance in our Krishna consciousness. And that's self-realization on the material level, because if I'm not conscious of my psyche, of the things that are hidden in there so deeply, and a lot of these things, they're impressions, they're samskaras from other lives. And it is helpful to actually try to understand, try to see, try to clear up all of these things that we have in our heart and in our minds to inform our Krishna consciousness. It's important, and that leads us to ultimately to being able to make fully informed decisions, where I have my own consciousness, my own psyche, my own emotions are taken into account, my own desires, and then I'm also checking in with Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra to make a decision. So I think it's important, and I know that not everyone sees the importance of that, and that's okay, because that is not the only way. We can just chant the holy name and things will just become self-evident. But there are other ways to help that process along, and we don't want to be chanting for decades and then come to realize that we have some conditioning that is hidden from our consciousness, or some samskaras that's going to affect how much progress we make. And so that's why it's helpful that we have association, because one of the things that people bring to us in our association is they help us see these things. If I have really close friends that are devotees and they're my well-wishers, they're going to tell me, something along the lines of, I see that you're struggling with this, or we're talking about it, right? I'm struggling with something, and they say, well, Prabhu, I've noticed that you have this habit of, doing this or seeing things like that. And then they offer a higher perspective based on Shastra. But that's all necessary to a large degree. Just because we're jivas that ultimately are eternal spiritual beings doesn't mean we ignore that we are embodied in these human bodies in the material world. We can't just deny it. We can try to, but we're here for a reason. And so this is one way of using, right? Prabhupada said, first become human, then become Krishna conscious. So that's just a thought on that.
If you allow me, I have something to add to that.
Yes, please do.
His question is, when we have doubt and we approach maybe a guru or somebody, and how do we handle that? Maybe it doesn't really correlate, or maybe they're advising us against something. And a good example is Bali Maharaj. And Bali Maharaj, it was put in doubt by his guru not to serve Krishna as Vamana. But Bali Maharaj, as Lila Mataji is saying, his constitution is that he's a very charitable person. Yeah. So he did not deny his own inner motivation of giving in charity, even though his guru was telling him, don't do it. But he has this natural, quality of giving in charity. So he went ahead anyway. Now, because he fulfilled his own desire, even though what happened later on was like chastisement, but he was still, happy because at the end, Krishna rewarded him. But whatever happened, whenever we, like my guru used to say, if you're in doubt, you have two options: do nothing, or you go by your instinct. So even if you're taking advice, you have these two options. And that's what Bali Maharaj did. He went by his own instinct, and at the end, of course, he's a devotee, he's a Mahajan, he's a great devotee. And eventually he was also blessed by Krishna. So don't forget that if you are in doubt, you have two options: do nothing, or you go by your own instinct, so that you don't have to blame anybody. I do what I want under the circumstance, and I'm okay. That's it. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Jai. Yes, do nothing or go by your own instinct. And this is, thank you so much, Prabhu, because that's a really powerful addition. Ultimately, if we're really taking responsibility for our lives and for our own Krishna consciousness, we don't want to be in a situation where we give up our personal power or, our own autonomy, so that later we give up our responsibility, and then later we can blame someone else and say, well, they told me to do it this way. Sure, it happens. Sometimes we make mistakes, but I've thought about this before, where if I'm going to make a mistake, at least that it's going to be my mistake, something that I chose, and I chose wrongly, and I thought about it and I made a decision. And then I can't blame anyone else for what I did or didn't do. And that to me is important. We're taking responsibility for our own lives. It's not that when we surrender to Krishna, we stop being individuals with autonomy, or when we surrender to Guru, now we don't have our own individual thoughts and minds to make our own decisions. We're expected to be mature spiritual practitioners, and by mature I mean taking responsibility for our own decisions. So I do value that, what you're saying about our own choice, and that this is why, to know ourselves, so that we can make decisions based on what do I really value, and where am I, what is it that I'm trying to accomplish. And sure, then if we see that action or that choice brought in under something undesirable, then now we know better. It's a lesson learned, lesson lived, lesson learned. I do appreciate that. Yes, Bali Maharaj went with his own instinct and was following his nature. And then in Shastra says you can't be faulted for that. That's the perfection of us getting to know who we are, is understanding our nature and living through that. No fault in that.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Her Grace Lila Devi. We thank you for the wisdom, the insight, the realizations, and above all, the love. So, devotees, I think we may all have to unmute ourselves. Except someone has something else to say, but I think we all may have to unmute ourselves, and then we chant the loudest Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation for our revered speaker, a great Lila Devi. And somehow I have a way of capturing Kusha. Yeah. So, Hare Krishna. Jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Panchakapatarabhyascha Kripasya Evacha Patitanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
All glories to Her Grace Lila Devi Ki.